Thanks, everybody. I hope everybody's having a good afternoon, and thanks for having me. As she said, I'm going to be talking a little bit about all the great things that are going on in the community, but more specifically kind of dive into some of the changing workforce needs. So I just, by way of context, and just to kind of help understand sort of my frame of reference, I wanted to just give you a little bit of my bio. I am the Vice President of Entrepreneurship for EDAWN, but I really self-identify as a serial entrepreneur. I started my first company in high school. I've started 6 ventures, mostly in technology. The last one before I joined EDAWN was a paddleboard company, Tahoe SUP. Some of you may have been up on the lake and seen our product. So that's kind of, I really think about the world in terms of entrepreneurship. But it's been really amazing to have the ability to take that kind of entrepreneurial background and apply it to our community. And through that, I sit on the board of the Discovery Museum. I'm the organizer of TEDx Reno, if any of you have been to the TEDx conference. And I work with the global organization EO, which is about 10,000 members worldwide, really growing entrepreneurs. And so I really got to have a good understanding of what their workforce needs are, what the challenges are, and both as an employer and working with those folks. And then I'm involved with this thing called the Rainforest, which is really about how do you build innovation ecosystems, which is kind of, there's an undercurrent of that in my talk today. And we're working on this cool thing, which is a deck of cards for our startup community. That's why there's a picture of me on a card. So just, how many of you know what EDAWN is and what we do, just by a show of hands? Okay, good. So a lot of people don't know. Awesome. So EDAWN is an economic development agency, and we really care about one thing, and that is quality jobs. And we care about quality jobs by bringing them into the community, helping companies grow them, and then providing the environment for people to grow their jobs. And so what you see mostly in the headlines are things like bringing in Tesla or bringing in Switch and attracting jobs. But that's really only one piece of the puzzle. In fact, we like to look at it as a 3-legged stool. And without all 3 legs, obviously don't have a stable stool. So the other 2 legs of the economic development stool are the retention. So if you think about if we bring a Tesla to town as an attraction effort, once they're here, it's really service after the sale. So that's really the retention effort. So whether that's workforce, which is a big part of that, dealing with regulatory issues, that types of things, we're really there to help them grow in the community. I really don't do either attraction, nor do I do any retention and expansion. What I do, based on my background, is the entrepreneurial development leg. And that's sort of the mysterious leg because it's kind of hard to define what that is. But really what that is more about how do we create the environment for our entrepreneurs and our startups to be successful, thus allowing them to grow and add more jobs. And just reflect for a minute about the importance of IGT on our community. That it has a long history, there's been many spin-outs, and that's been a homegrown company. Unfortunately, if you can attract a company into town, other people can attract them out. But once they tend to grow up in a community, they tend to stay. And so that's really where our effort has been placed. And I would say that that is a new thought in economic development, and we are one of the leading organizations in the country and have been recognized in putting that much effort into entrepreneurial development. And so up until about 2 months ago, that seemed sufficient. But the world has sort of changed. And with the addition of Tesla and now with Switch and with our pipeline, it's becoming increasingly clear that workforce development is going to be where those are the legs of the stool. The strong foundation of the seat is going to be around workforce development. And so we are reallocating resources and reshifting some of our priorities to focus more on that. And then sort of the base of the stool, on the ground, is more community development. And I would argue that we're kind of already doing that. I mean, the point behind TEDx is really about how do we create that vibrancy? How do we communicate both internally to our community and externally that something that we all know is true, which is Reno is an awesome place. We are full of talented people and we have great ideas, and this is a place to be. And so that we're putting more and more energy in community development. So if you'll forgive me for a second, I want to go like 50,000 foot. Let's go to the kind of the macro view. Through TED and through all the entrepreneurial experiences, I've been exposed to a couple things that I wanted to talk about. And how many people are familiar with Daniel Pink? His work at Drive. Has anybody read Drive or The Whole New Mind? Really interesting work. But he basically argues that the world is changing from an age of information age to a conceptual age. And that the technical skills that we have are no longer sufficient. That you need to take technical skills and pair them with more broad, big thinking, sort of metaphorically right brain skills, more empathy, more design, and that's where we're going to see the jobs of the future, and those are going to be the future leaders. And if you take, if you don't know Dan Pink, you probably don't know Ray Kurzweil, but Ray Kurzweil is the head of Google's AI division. He's one of the Singularity University guys. Just think of him as a really big brain guy. And so his point is that we can only see the future in a linear fashion, but based upon Moore's law and the rapid changing technology, things are happening at an exponential rate. So the real takeaway here is the jobs of the future are going to be changing from information to conceptual, and it's going to be happening much, much faster than we think. And I think that's a point of pause and concern, but also pretty exciting from my perspective. So let's bring it kind of back to something that's a little bit more tangible, which is our community. So what is going on in Reno is nothing short of remarkable from a job creation standpoint. If you think about the last time we went through a boom cycle, which was end of 2000, or early 2000, we had an annual growth rate of about 2.2%. Based just on what we see from Tesla, our pipeline, and the natural growth of the community, we're predicting almost a 5% annual growth rate for the next 5 years. It's a huge, Reno will not be the same place that we know it is today in the next 5 years. And that will create good and bad things, but I'm a big fan of let's just get to the truth and deal with it. So that will maybe mean longer lines, more parking, more traffic, some of the things that are not so positive, but some of the things that are positive are a lot more jobs and a lot better jobs for the community. Already, just with some of the recent announcements, we've seen the average wage increase dramatically. And don't quote me on this, but it's been significant, like $4 or $5 an hour is significant. And and just to look at some of the jobs that we've got coming in, and this is based on what we've brought in today, not kind of forward looking. Not surprisingly, a lot of manufacturing jobs, a lot of distribution jobs. But I would argue that this is a snapshot of where we are today. As we look out 3, 4, 5 years, you're going to start to see more jobs like Switch. And how many people are familiar with Switch Communications? They just came up here. So Switch is the largest data center in the world. They're based in Vegas, and they're building something like 3 million square feet of co-located data centers. And normal data centers aren't that exciting because they just bring 9, 10 people, but a co-location service brings you eBay, Sony Online. They bring people from all of those different companies into the community, high-paying jobs, really exciting stuff. The other thing I would say is we haven't felt this yet, but there is a company culture shift that's going on in the world, and this is especially true with the companies we work with in the Bay Area. And so I think the workforce of the future, especially with the millennials, approach work differently, and they expect a different type of work environment. And I think exposure at this level is going to be really important. So we're looking at how do we communicate the ways of what the jobs of the future are going to look like. How do we communicate that so that we can attract those creative class folks as well. So just ponder that for a minute. This is probably a conservative estimate. 50,000 new jobs. That's not including family, friends. I mean, that could be 75,000 people in the next 4 or 5 years. It's a big number, unprecedented. So I would say this is where you guys come in. I wasn't that familiar with Signature Academy before this, but as I looked and have talked with people and understood, one of the things that I really love about what you're doing here is it falls into something that I would call strengths-based learning, really helping people identify what their core strengths and their core talents are and focusing on that. That's a big part of the entrepreneurial world where we look at, okay, how do we match the right person to the right job that they're going to care about? And I've seen that. It's been part of my personal journey. I've seen that with all of my friends that have very high growth companies. This idea of focusing and maximizing people's strengths is part of the future job work. And I think that's great. I think that's already, from what I'm looking at, you help students kind of identify what do they care about, what are they interested in, kind of go deep on that. And I think that's a great thing. The other thing that is, and this, I may have a little bit of my own jaded view on this, but this idea of real experiential learning. Entrepreneurship in particular is not a theoretical endeavor. It is truly an experiential process. You have to go do and learn. And I think that's what's amazing about the work that you're doing is it's, I have an engineering degree. I studied a lot of theoretical physics and things like that. But at the end of the day, you got to be able to put it in practice, and I think that's a great That's a great role for this. And then of course, anytime I can beat the entrepreneurial drum, I think that's awesome. And I'm going to get to some thoughts on that in a minute, but let me just kind of keep going here. I think one of the other things that I think this is going to be really important, and this may be a topic for debate, but I really believe that we need to think beyond STEM and go directly to STEAM, because arts are super critical to the future of design of products. I mean, I was just commenting as I was walking in the building, how the building feels smart to me. It feels modern. It feels like a great place to work. You could have the same building without all of that and do all of the same things, but that sense is really impactful for people. And in my world and with the entrepreneurs that I see, adding that artistic element really helps foster future innovation. So I think that's an area where I think this group of people can really kind of push the needle. STEM is great, STEAM is even better. So I'll kind of get off my high horse on that one. The other thing that I think is really exciting, and this is just something that maybe we're working on and that we can work with you folks on, is this concept of how do we teach this design thinking methodology. It's really an empathetic design process, sort of human-centered design. And I think those are important skills, whether you're running a CNC machine, running your company, working in a kitchen, to really understand what your customers' needs are and deliver solutions that meet those is really important. And so I don't, even if you wouldn't necessarily think that would apply to a very defined technical skill, I think that's not true. And that kind of comes back to that whole idea of we're moving towards sort of this conceptual mindset. But, again, I think the fact that you are all here and you're all helping take your industry experience and bring it to the students in an experiential way is probably the best thing that you could ask for. And I'm just personally excited to know that this exists in the community. And I thought I knew about what was really going on in the community. So the one thing I would say is, you don't have to do it alone, right? There's never been a better time in the community to partner and work with people. I mean, Reno has never been so innovative as it is right now. So by a show of hands, how many people are familiar with the Reno generator? Okay, a handful. Okay, so the generator, the Reno generator is it's a unique asset in our community. It's more than a makerspace. It's a place where you can build art, you can collaborate with people. It's a free makerspace with like 40,000 square feet of every tool known to man. And you go there and work on your side projects. And to me, as a young teenager who you can probably imagine I was somewhat precocious starting a company at 16, being in an environment where you could have access to tools and have mentors and have people and work on the projects that I care about was really important. And so I think that what we have in today's world in Reno specifically is we have a lot of opportunities for students to take what they learn in the classroom and go out into these other environments in the world, these shared environments, and practice it and take those skills and get deeper learning through practicing around the things that they really care about. And whether that's, for me, I like to work on my Burning Man bike, but I don't have all the stuff to go to Burning Man, so I go to the generator. Or if you have students that are interested in entrepreneurship, they can participate in Startup Weekend Reno, which is a 56-hour experience in entrepreneurship. We work with students, they get their concepts, they go out, they find customers, they call people. I mean, it is 56 hours of living in a startup. And whether you come out of that and say, that wasn't for me, or you got that experience, these things now exist, and I would implore you to reach out and find ways to plug your students in to the broader community, because there is a ton of stuff. Bridgewire, same thing, Makerspace. We have the Mini Maker Fair. We've got lots of stuff. So this is a quick pitch. I have one of these, hopefully for everybody. I think I brought 100. This is an infographic that we had created, which tells a little bit about the community, but has a list of all of the entrepreneurial resources and a link to a website that has a lot of this information. That, there's hopefully one for everybody. Put it in your class, learn a little bit more about it. But never before have we had this much. 2 years ago, most of these things didn't exist. In the last 2 to 3 years, the community has really come together and launched many of these new things, which are for the benefit of all of us. And so then I guess I'm going to kind of wrap it up on a more personal note. The reason why I decided to join EDAWN after my company was of my two little guys. And I wanted them to be proud to be from Reno. I realized that this was a great place to live, and I'd gone all over the world, and people were like, Reno, what are you, crazy? Like, I'm sure you've all heard it. And I'm like, I do not want my boys to grow up in that environment, and I can go make a change. And so, I hope that one day one of my two boys, or both my boys, are in a classroom with you all. So thank you very much. I do have one, I couldn't pass up the opportunity to give some homework, just because I've always been on the other side of the desk. If you're interested in any of these books, I'm happy to kind of, these are some of the forward-thinking books that the entrepreneurial community has really embraced, and I think they're useful. So anyway, with that, I will say thank you, and if I can answer any questions, I'm happy to answer questions.
Questions?
When's Toyota getting here?
When's Toyota? After Panasonic, maybe. The one thing I would say just on that note is one of the biggest challenges we had in attracting companies was our image. And when we got companies here, we would close them like 70% of the time. The Tesla effect has not been fully felt yet. What we're seeing is people went, oh, I thought Reno was a suburb of Vegas. Wait a second, what does Tesla know that I don't know? And then all the positive press has gone. And when people come here, they see what you and I know, which is this is an amazing community. This is a great place to live. And so what we're seeing is we're still closing at 70%, and the number of visits is going way up. So we'll see. I don't know about Toyota. That's kind of a big ask, but it's going to get better.
When is the next startup?
Startup weekend?
Yes, thank you.
We just had one a couple of months ago. We'll probably run it annually, but we might do it twice a year. So there will be another startup fair, which is a great place for students to get involved, but we'll do it at least annually. So we just had it a couple months ago. The next probably big event that will be entrepreneurial will be Maker Fair, and that'll be in May. That's a good one. But there is a program called Lemonade Day. It's lemonadeday.org, and it's run by Google. And if anybody wants to spearhead that, please call me. I will, EDAWN can sponsor that. A big part of what we do is we're catalysts for programs because we can only run so much. So if people are interested in taking Lemonade Day and bringing entrepreneurship to the classroom, I would happily encourage that and help in any way we can.
Are you hearing of any medical supply companies that are interested, or is Reno seems to be kind of focused on more technology, at least from what I'm seeing in the media? Yeah. Anything on the horizon with medical areas?
Well, so I know of a couple medical manufacturing companies. There's a startup that's got some really cool titration, like titer plate tips or something. I don't know. I shouldn't even try and say it. So I know of a little bit of things. Biotech is not our strength right now. I think that we would love it to be. Those are high-paying jobs. And one example of the positive growth, I mean, there's we have a FIRST Robotics. How many people know about the FIRST Robotics program? So it's the first time we have a competitive team at some level. Carrie, it's kind of a cool story. Carrie moved to the community from Phoenix. Her daughter was really involved in FIRST Robotics, and she was like, clearly there's a FIRST Robotics here, and it didn't exist. And so what we're going to get is an influx of people who have an expectation about cool things that are going on in their community, and they're going to launch it. And now there's 16 students. I was down at a local manufacturing company around here, helping them, looking at what they're doing. That's the kind of stuff that all these influx of new ideas is going to bring. And I think that's just one great example, and the one that we know about. So.
Any other questions? Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you. And